the life of Bourbon Street. You know you're old when a rookie's better than I thought. The premise is flawed and it's a disaster in Sacramento. Plus a look at the Hornets. All coming up on tip off. You shouldn't be listening to this. You should be listening to the Super Podcast with O'Connor and Phil. Phil takes a nice little shot in there. O'Connor and Phil are both high on Gordon. You shouldn't listen to this. Listen to that instead. Stop what you're doing. Really? If you have not listened to that and you're on iTunes or Stitcher or something like that, go to that one instead. This is not that good. That is. Listen to that podcast instead. Hi there. It's New Orleans. How are you? My God, Bourbon Street is nuts. Oh my gosh, I went in last night. I'm old. I came in. I actually like Bourbon Street for New Orleans for the art galleries and the food, and there's the French Quarter festivals going on right now, so I stayed in and prepped and got everything ready so I could go spend the day out there today after shoot around. And then, since yesterday's podcast I thought was fabulous, so I thought you might want another, I was going to sit down and do a introspective with Gordon Hayward. How's that? Thought you guys probably want to hear from G. I don't know if he'll tell me anything, but we'll see if we find anything out about him and learn a little bit about him and how he felt this 2 years is going and what life in the NBA is like and how, if he wishes he was a senior in high school right now. So we'll talk to Gordon about all that kind of stuff. That's coming up today. If you have not heard Phil and Kevin do it. Oh my gosh. You know you are old when. So if you've never been to Bourbon Street, it's a street, it's got bars, it's got bands, it's got strip clubs, it's got everything you can imagine. I mean, it is over the top. I've been here during Mardi Gras, and it was dangerously over the top. I mean, it's just a nutty, nutty place. I can't explain it to you. And you're walking, there's these balconies up above the street. It's kind of like an old French street, and there'll be strippers up top that are like trying to lure you into their place, and it's nuts. And one of the strip clubs is called Barely Legal, which is supposed to be appealing, evidently. And you know you're old when you see that sign and it says Barely Legal, and the thought that comes to your mind is almost my daughter. That's when you just go home on Bourbon Street instead. There's a lot of great art and there's great culture. Bourbon Street is just gluttonous debauchery, which can be very fun as well. I don't mean to act like that cannot be fun, but probably where I am as a non-drinker who's plus 40, it doesn't seem to ring my bell the way it did when I was here for Mardi Gras as a active drinker at 20. Yes, I know that's illegal. Anyway, and that was the most. I can sum up that trip for those of you that are interested very simply, with that I lived in Salt Lake at the time, and when I returned from Mardi Gras, I had a car at the airport in Salt Lake, and I took a cab home because it had been so long since I'd been sober. I didn't know what it felt like. Yeah, that was nutty. All right. So anyway, I'll go out and hit my beignet. I think that's what they're called, and see the culture here for a while. Then head shoot around and interview Gordon for you, so that should be up. I don't know when that'll be up. That'll either be up later this afternoon or that'll be Monday's podcast. Because that Phil and Kevin, I don't want to get that overshadowed. The Hornets, they've won 3 of their last 6. If Eric Gordon plays, he's been on and off. Back spasms are bothering him now. They're actually pretty good. They do not have a point guard right now because Jarrett Jack is out, so they're playing Vasquez, who's okay, but he's really a backup. Ariza's out there, Landry's out there, Chris Kamen's causing problems, Jason Smith is causing problems. If our guys don't come and play like they didn't last time, they could lose tonight. New Orleans is capable of beating you. They've won 3 of 6. They're playing better. Monty Williams is a very good coach. They'll slow the game down and try to bore you to death, so if you're not engaged in the game as a player, you will lose. You will fall into the trap. Al has been terrible here recently, and he's always so vital to whether we win or not. So let's keep an eye on that. And Millsap's wrist is a huge issue. He was wearing a black brace on it yesterday Woke up with it just incredibly swollen and couldn't move it, and so he went to the doctor. But it's not casted, which is what my concern was when he got on the bus, that it would be casted. So we'll see. I'll head to shoot around today to get that information for you. You can follow me on at Locked On Sports. By the way, follow me on Facebook at David Locke, and I will share various items in life and travel and all of that. And then follow me as well on Locked On Sports is kind of the Facebook discussion spot for kind of to keep the interaction alive. So that's the way it's working. Hopefully it's working well. If you have any thoughts, let me know. You can always email me at dlock@utahjazz.com. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say about the Hornets. Jazz has got to play, and we'll see where they can. I'd love it if tonight Cantor and Burks could get some things going. I mean, I think we've been outscored in 10 of the last 11 games. Cantor's on the floor. Burks is about minus 55 in the last 4 games when he's on the floor. We need something out of that group. And those two guys, because the bench was a strength for the Jazz, and now with all the injuries, it's not. I mean, we have almost as many guys on the injured list as we do active and available. And if Paul can't go tonight, holy smokes. I mean, Favors and Jefferson and Cantor now play those big minutes. Carroll, Burks, and Hayward are the only guys you have for the wings. Jeremy's out. And Jamal and Devin have to play a ton because Earl's out. So we at some point we were getting dangerously thin with a playoff run lining up for us. Monday home against Dallas. Get your tickets, utahjazz.com. I want you out there. It'll be great. Dallas is interesting. I'm not sure the premise. I've been high on Dallas all year. And I watched them last night, and I know why I'm high on them all year, because, frankly, every time they get down to a single possession, they give the ball to Dirk, they're going to beat you. And so I'd hate to play them in the playoff because you get to a 92-92 game, they just give it to Dirk for 5 minutes. The question is, the premise everyone has on them is, well, once the playoffs start, they'll get some rest and they'll kick in. I went through a bunch of playoff years last year. I can't find that example. When you find the example of the team that clicks in, it's like a Memphis last year that beat San Antonio, a Dallas that lost to the Golden State team. There's very few cases I can find of the older team that sleepwalks through the season then clicks in. The closest is that Celtic team a few years ago. But I'm not sure that the whole idea of this is not flawed, that you can just take that they'll suddenly click in. I mean, I think there just might be something a little. If you're on, you're on. If you're off, you're off. The other one watching that game, Dallas Golden State last night while prepping, is Klay Thompson's really good. I didn't miss badly. I thought he'd be Carlos Delfino, who's I think a fairly good player. But Delfino's not dropping 24, 7, and 8 very often. And they're asking Klay to do an awful lot right now. He's basically their outside option with David Lee as their inside option. And he's holding himself pretty well. His ball handling's better than I thought. His shot is beautiful. He's a little better athlete than I suspected. So that's a good pick by the Warriors. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as a backcourt. Andrew Bogut, David Lee as a frontcourt. If they go get a draft pick and get a wing, they'll be okay. They are a game. They have moved to 8th. They are a game and a half away from being able to get their pick back. Detroit, as we talked about the other day, we thought there was no way that Detroit was going to be able to. Detroit's going to win games, and they did last night. There's no way that I could see Golden State finishing any differently than that. As we talked about yesterday on that, what you do is you're following the win column, and so Golden State is at 22, Detroit's at 22. New Jersey's the one we got to be. New Jersey and Toronto are the ones you got to watch. You just need New Jersey and Toronto to lose an awful lot of games. You need Golden State to win one more game. And in case you didn't hear tip-off earlier, New Jersey's schedule the rest of the way leads you to believe they could lose all but the last night. At Philly, home against Boston, home against Miami, home against New York, at Milwaukee, home against Philly. I'd be surprised if they won any of those. The 26th at Toronto is a game that we need the Warriors to have won one more game by then to separate it, and then Toronto would have to win two more games the rest of the way, and three if we can get the Warriors to win one more game. We really need the Warriors to win one more game. They play home against Boston tonight, at Atlanta, home against Atlanta, at Miami, at Detroit. At this point, we got to kind of concede the Detroit situation, so you hope Detroit wins that. At Milwaukee, and then that last game against New Jersey. So someone gets a win there, and you just hope the Warriors can win one more game. If the Warriors win one more game, they'll be in the 8th spot unless they win the lottery. We will get that pick. The question is, do the Warriors have a game to win? And the Warriors at the Clippers, home against San Antonio, home against the Lakers, at Dallas, at Houston, at Minnesota, home against New Orleans, last game of the year, home against San Antonio. One of those last three, but boy, they could be in real full-fledged tank mode when they realize what's going on by then. So, to their credit, they're playing hard, and Mark Jackson's doing a pretty good job. I know that hurts. Interesting in Chicago, they benched Derrick Rose for that whole fourth quarter and overtime. That game went with C.J. Watson and beat Miami last night. It's interesting. Thibodeau's just benched stars. I mean, we always wanted Sloan to bench Boozer more for Paul Millsap, which is basically Taj Gibson, and Thibodeau's done it. I don't know what the right line on that is. Tyrone has been very conscious to not embarrass his players. Tom Thibodeau seems to be, we're trying to win, and that gave us the best chance to win. As long as we win, I'm all right. I'm not sure what the right answer is there. And the Sacramento situation has become a disaster, by the way. The Sacramento Bee has written an editorial today asking for the Maloofs to get out as owners, which is kind of a ridiculous concept because they're not going to just sell their team. The Kevin Johnson humiliated the Maloofs in a letter today for backing out of their handshake deal. The NBA really cannot force the Maloofs to do anything. They own the franchise, and they own the franchise. It's only if the Maloofs are in such desperate money situation that they would sell that franchise, and then it's probably out of Sacramento. So anyway, those are the news notes from a Jazz standpoint. We're all waiting on Millsap. That's the big story. And I will go to shoot around. And if you have not listened to that podcast with Kevin O'Connor and Phil Johnson, please do that. I'm heading out to a tamer breakfast, Bourbon Street. See ya. Actually, I'll go to Canal Street. It's far better.